Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. We're going with Amber for the VP position. I still remember exactly how the air felt when those words hit me, like someone had sucked all the oxygen from the room. My lungs burned. My cheeks flushed hot with humiliation as I sat across from Martin, our CEO, in that sleek conference room where I'd presented hundreds of winning strategies over the years. "I don't understand," I managed to say, my voice embarrassingly small. "My numbers are the best in the department. I've been here for 25 years. Yes, Diana, we know." Martin's smile didn't reach his eyes. He tapped his Mont Blanc pen against my performance review, the one showing I'd exceeded every target, and "We value that loyalty. But Crestwood needs fresh blood, new perspectives." "Amber brings energy," the clients respond to. Fresh blood, like mine, had somehow curdled after turning 48. "She's been here 6 months," I whispered, feeling something crack inside me. "I built those client relationships. I trained her." Martin leaned forward, lowering his voice like he was doing me a favor. "Look, this isn't personal. The board feels Amber's more aligned with where we're heading. The tech landscape moves fast. We need someone who can keep up. Keep up, as if I hadn't been sprinting ahead of everyone else for decades." I nodded mechanically, stood up on legs that didn't feel like mine, and walked out past the glass-walled offices where everyone pretended not to watch, past Amber's desk where she sat with her perfect blonde top, not already changing her email signature to include Vice President of Client Relations. My position. My life. Hi, I'm Diana Mercer, 48 years old, mother of 2 college-aged kids. I raised mostly alone after my ex decided fatherhood cramped his entrepreneurial spirit. Career woman who believed that excellence would always be rewarded. Fool who gave her prime years to a company that discarded her the moment her crow's feet became visible in video calls. Before I dive deeper into what happened next, because trust me, this story takes some turns even I couldn't have predicted, take a second to like this video and subscribe. I read every comment, so tell me where you're watching from. I never thought I'd be sharing something this personal online, but after what happened, I realized keeping quiet only protects the wrong people. Let me back up a little. Crestwood Technologies wasn't always the soulless place it became. When I joined at 23, fresh out of college with a marketing degree and student loans crushing my shoulders, it was a scrappy tech consulting firm with big dreams. 15 employees crammed into an office above a Chinese restaurant, the smell of kung pao chicken perpetually wafting through our vents. I was hired as an assistant account manager, but within 3 years I was handling our biggest clients solo. By 30, I was bringing in accounts that transformed us from local outfit to regional player. By 40, my client portfolio was worth over $200 million annually. I got married somewhere in there, had kids, got divorced when Tom decided his cycling. Instructor understood him better than his workaholic wife. Through it all, Crestwood was my constant, my identity, my security. Martin joined as CEO 8 years ago when our founder retired. He came from a bigger firm with slick presentations about disruption and youth culture. Suddenly, our offices were renovated with nap pods and cold brew on tap. Our average employee age dropped by a decade. I adapted, learned TikTok, changed my wardrobe, worked harder, stayed later, never complained when 20-somethings were promoted around me into newly created positions with vague titles and higher salaries. Play the long game, my friend, Vivian advised over wine nights. You know, the clients you have, the relationships, they can't replace that. I believed her. Stupid. Right when our VP of Client Relations announced his retirement, I thought my moment had finally arrived. I'd been doing half his job already for years. Clients asked for me by name. My performance reviews were flawless. Then came Amber Chen, 28, Stanford NBA former collegiate volleyball player with legs for days and that effortless confidence of someone who's never been told no. Martin hired her personally as a senior account strategist and started inviting her to leadership meetings. Within weeks, I trained her myself, introduced her to our key accounts, shared contact information I'd cultivated for years, showed her our systems, our processes, our shortcuts, because I'm a team player. Because I thought demonstrating my leadership would prove I deserved that VP title. Months later, I sat in that conference room while Martin explained why I was too old for the job I'd essentially been doing already. That night, I sat in my car, in the parking garage for 2 hours, unable to drive home, unable to face my daughter Emma, home from college for spring break, who'd already texted, "Did you get it?" with excited emojis. I couldn't bear to tell her that mommy wasn't valued anymore, that all those missed birthdays and school plays I'd sacrificed for work meant nothing in the end. I finally drove home in a daze, told Emma I was fighting a migraine, and locked myself in my bathroom. Stared at my reflection. The lines around my mouth, the gray I carefully covered every 3 weeks, the slight softness under my chin that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Is this what failure looks like? I whispered to myself. The next morning, I put on my armor, my best blazer, extra concealer, a smile that hurt my face, walked into the office like nothing had happened. Congratulated Amber with words that tasted like ash in my mouth. "I'm so excited to learn from you," she said, eyes wide with what looked like genuine admiration. "You're literally a legend here. A legend, like I was already part of the company's ancient history." The announcement email went out that afternoon. My phone blew up with texts from colleagues, mostly the other veterans over 40 expressing outrage, sympathy, promises to meet for drinks soon. I responded with gracious platitudes, professional to the end. But something had fundamentally shifted. Inside me, a lifetime of playing by the rules, of believing hard work would be rewarded, crumbled like sand between my fingers. The following weeks were a special kind of hell. Amber began restructuring the department. Suddenly, my direct reports were reassigned. My corner office was needed for a collaboration space, so I was moved to a desk in the open floor plan, sandwiched between 2 recent graduates who played EDM through their headphones loud enough for me to hear the bass. My job title remained the same, but my responsibilities dwindled. I wasn't invited to strategy meetings anymore. Clients I'd worked with for 15 years were officially transitioned to younger account managers under Amber's supervision. "We want to make sure our clients have continuity if you decide to retire," Martin explained when I finally confronted him as if 48 was one step from the nursing home. I started having panic attacks in the shower each morning, lost 10 lb I couldn't afford to lose, began searching job listings at night, only to find that comparable positions at other companies all seemed to use code words like energetic, digital, native, and startup mentality. My son Zach, calling from his sophomore year at UCLA, noticed something was wrong. "Mom, you sound different. Are you okay?" "Just tired, honey," I lied. "Big project at work." The truth was I had almost nothing to do at work anymore. I'd been sidelined so completely it was like I'd already been fired. But without the severance package, I started calculating how long I could survive on my savings if I quit, how I'd explain the gap on my resume, whether I could afford both kids' tuition without my salary. Then came the Williams account crisis. Williams Aerospace was our biggest client, a $50 million annual contract that represented nearly 20% of Crestwood's business. I'd personally managed their account for 17 years through 3 different CEOs on their end. Their current CEO, Robert Williams, son of the founder, had been a rising executive when I first started working with them. We'd grown in our careers in parallel. Amber had been especially eager to take over Williams. In meetings, she kept referring to Robert as Bob, though everyone knew he despised the nickname, and talking about modernizing their approach. 3 months after her promotion, Williams missed a quarterly review meeting. Then they rescheduled and missed again. Their invoices, previously paid like clockwork, became mysteriously delayed. I heard whispers but kept my head down. Not my problem anymore, right? Then came that Wednesday morning. I was at my sad little desk, updating my LinkedIn profile, when Martin appeared beside me, face ashen. "Diana, conference room." Now inside, I found Amber pacing, her usual composure shattered. 2 board members were on the video screen looking grim. "What's going on?" I asked, taking a seat. Martin ran his hands through his thinning hair. "Williams is threatening to cancel their contract, all of it. effective immediately. The room seemed to tilt sideways. On what grounds? They claim we've been unresponsive to their needs, that our new strategies don't align with their company culture. Martin wouldn't meet my eyes. Robert Williams is demanding to speak to you personally. Says if you're not on the call this afternoon, they're walking. I felt a dangerous flutter of satisfaction beneath my ribs. Me? But I'm not on the account anymore. This isn't funny, Diana, Amber snapped, her voice higher than usual. We could lose everything. You need to fix this. Fix this? After they'd pushed me aside, after they'd made it clear I was obsolete? What exactly do you want me to do? I asked, my voice perfectly level. Whatever it takes, Martin said. Tell Williams there was a miscommunication, that you're still involved, that Amber works under your supervision. I let his words hang in the air, feeling the weight of them, the desperation. That would be lying, I finally said. The room went silent. One of the board members leaned toward their camera. Ms. Mercer, I understand you must feel overlooked given recent organizational changes, but surely you care about the company's survival. Did I, though? That was the question turning over in my mind as I sat there, suddenly holding all the power I'd been told I no longer deserved. I need to think, I said, standing up, and I'll need to review the Williams file to understand what's happened before I can help. Of course, Martin said quickly. Anything you need, Amber. We'll get you full access. Again, I walked out feeling their eyes on my back. For the first time in months, I stood straight in the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and pressed my forehead against the cool metal door. My heart raced, but not with anxiety. This time, with possibility, with the sudden dizzying awareness that I'd been handed leverage I never expected to have. Robert Williams hadn't contacted me by accident. We'd had dinner just last month, a catching up between old friends thing. I hadn't bothered to mention to anyone at Crestwood. He'd asked pointed questions about my career, noted that I seemed less enthusiastic than usual. I'd been vague, protective, of my professional image even then. He must have connected the dots when Amber started handling his account. My phone buzzed with a text from Martin. Meeting with Williams set for 3 p.m. Please be prepared. I closed my eyes and allowed myself, just for a moment, to consider options I'd never let myself contemplate before. The loyalty that had defined my career suddenly felt like chains I could finally shrug off. By the time I walked back to my desk, a decision was crystallizing in my mind, one that would either secure my future or burn everything to the ground. Either way, I wouldn't be anyone's legend anymore. I'd be their reckoning. I pulled up my personal email and began composing a message to Robert Williams. My fingers didn't shake at all as I typed, Robert, we need to talk before the 3 p.m. call. There are things you should know. Robert responded within minutes. Diana expected to hear from you. Call my private line ASAP. I glanced around the office. Amber was huddled with Martin in his glass-walled office, both gesturing frantically. No one was watching me. I grabbed my purse, walked calmly to the stairwell, and called Robert. Once the heavy, metal door closed behind me. This explains so much, he said after I'd laid out the situation, my demotion and everything but name, how I'd been systematically pushed aside. The new proposals from Crestwood are garbage, complete misunderstanding of our needs. Amber's smart, I said, surprising myself with my fairness, just inexperienced. Smart doesn't help me when the board is breathing down my neck about wasted marketing dollars. Robert's voice hardened. Look, I didn't call just because I miss working with you, though I do. Our numbers are down 12% since they took you off our account. My CFO is talking about finding a new agency altogether. My heart pounded as I paced the concrete stairwell. What exactly do you want, Robert? You back on our account fully empowered or we walk? He paused. Unless you've got one foot out the door already. The question hung between us. Did I? Should I? I need to think about what's best for me now, I answered carefully. We'll think fast. I meant what I said. If you're not running point for us by end of week, we're pulling the contract. And Diana, you might want to check your email more often. There are people who still value experience in this industry. We hung up and I checked my personal email again. 3 messages from competing agencies. all sent within the past month, all with subject lines like opportunity to discuss and confidential interest in your expertise. I'd been so busy trying to save my position at Crestwood that I hadn't even noticed the recruiters circling for the first time in months. I felt a genuine smile form. I had options, I had leverage, I had power. Walking back into the office, I felt like a different person than the one who'd left minutes before. Martin spotted me and waved me into his office urgently. "What did William say? Have you spoken to him?" His forehead glistened with sweat. "Not yet," I lied smoothly. "But I've reviewed what's happened with the account. Mind if I sit?" I took the chair across from his desk without waiting for permission. The power chair, the one visitors rarely got to use. "We don't have time," Martin began. "Actually, we do," I interrupted, enjoying the startled look on his face. "The call's not for 3 hours, and before I salvage this situation, we need to be clear about terms." Amber, who had been standing by the window, turned sharply. "Terms?" "Yes." I crossed my legs, adjusting my blazer. "If I'm going to convince Williams to stay, I need to know exactly what my role will be moving forward." Martin's relief was visible. He thought this was just a negotiation for a better title, maybe more money. "Of course, Diana. We value your contribution enormously." "Stop." I held up a hand. "Let's not pretend. 6 months ago, I was too old, too outdated for leadership. Now, you need my relationships to save the company. So here's what's going to happen." I laid out my demands clearly. Full reinstatement as lead on the Williams account, a senior VP title above Amber, and a compensation package that reflected my value to the company. Martin and Amber exchanged glances. "We'd need board approval for some of this," he hedged. "Then get it before the call." I stood up. "I'm going home to prepare. I'll be back at 2:30. "You can't just leave," Amber started. "Watch me." I walked out, feeling their stunned gazes on my back. At home, I kicked off my heels and made myself a proper lunch for the first time in years. No sad desk salad today. As I ate, I opened my laptop and began to review those recruiting emails more carefully. Phoenix Marketing Group wanted to discuss a senior director position. Meridian Consultants mentioned bringing your client portfolio. The third from Ellis Warner was the most intriguing. They were opening a new division focused on legacy clients and wanted someone with established relationships in the aerospace sector. I picked up my phone and made a call. "Vivian, it's me. Remember that scenario we discussed over wine last month? I need your legal expertise. How enforceable is my non-compete, really?" Vivian, my oldest friend and a cutthroat corporate attorney, laughed. "Depends how badly you want to burn the bridge, honey. Let's just say I've got matches and gasoline ready." By the time I walked back into Crestwood at 2:07, I had 3 meetings scheduled with competing agencies, a clear understanding of exactly how to navigate my non-compete clause, and a secondary email sent to Robert Williams with some interesting attachments. Martin, Amber, and now the full executive team waited in the conference room. A contract sat at my place, the promised promotion and raises, already signed by the board chairman. Diana. Martin's smile was too wide, too desperate. "We're so pleased to offer you this enhanced role." The board met virtually and unanimously. "Approved everything you asked for." I picked up the contract, flipped through it without sitting down. "Thank you. This looks comprehensive." Relief flooded his face. "Excellent. Now, about the Williams call. I've been thinking about how to approach this," I said, placing the unsigned contract back on the table. "And I believe honesty is the best policy." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What does that mean?" "Exactly?" asked our CFO Garrett, his eyes narrowing. "It means I'm going to tell Robert Williams the truth, that I was pushed aside because of my age, that the company values youth over experience, that I was excluded from leadership because I didn't fit the image Crestwood wanted to project." Martin's face drained of color. "That would be extremely unprofessional, would it?" I tilted my head. "More unprofessional than what happened to me? More unprofessional than lying to a $50 million client about who's actually running their account?" "You can't possibly," Amber started. "I absolutely can," I cut her off. Unless what?" Martin demanded. "What?" I pulled my own document from my bag and slid it across the table. "Unless you sign this instead." It wasn't just a revised employment contract. It was a separation agreement. 3 years' salary as severance, full benefits continuation, and most importantly, a complete waiver of my non-compete and non-solicitation clauses. You're quitting? Martin looked bewildered. After fighting for the promotion? I'm not fighting for a promotion, I corrected him. I'm fighting for what I'm worth, and Crestwood has made it abundantly clear that it doesn't value what I bring to the table. So yes, I'm leaving. The only question is whether I leave with Williams Aerospace as a client or whether I help you keep them. The executives exchanged panicked glances. Garrett picked up my separation agreement, scanning it with growing alarm. This is extortion, he sputtered. This is business, I replied calmly. You taught me that loyalty means nothing. Consider this, my final lesson learned. The Williams call was scheduled to begin in 7 minutes. I could practically hear the executives' minds racing, calculating the cost of my severance against the loss of their biggest client. We can discuss a counteroffer, Martin began. No counteroffers, I interrupted. Sign or I tell Robert everything. Diana Amber's voice was quiet now, all the confidence drained away. I never meant to save it. I checked my watch. 5 minutes. Martin grabbed the agreement, scrolled his signature with a shaking hand, and shoved it toward the CFO, who did the same. One by one, the executives signed, their faces a mix of fury and defeat. I took the document, verified all signatures, and tucked it safely away. Thank you for your prompt decision. Then I sat down at the conference table and dialed Robert Williams on speaker just as the clock hit 3 dial. Robert, it's Diana Mercer. I have the Crestwood executive team here with me. Diana, his voice boomed through the speaker. Good to hear. Your voice. I was beginning to think they were holding you hostage. I smiled at the executives' uncomfortable faces. Not at all. In fact, we've been having a productive conversation about the future of the Williams account. For the next hour, I walked Robert through a transition plan, one where I would personally oversee his account for the next 3 months to ensure continuity before Amber took over completely. I praised Amber's strategic thinking while emphasizing the need for her to better understand Williams' specific needs. I was the consummate professional. By the end of the call, Robert had agreed to stay with Crestwood for now, with quarterly reviews and the understanding that I would be available for consultation even after the transition. When the call ended, the room sat in stunned silence. You saved the account, Martin finally said. After everything, you still saved it. I honored my commitments, I corrected him. Something this company should try sometime. I gathered my things and stood up. My resignation is effective immediately. I'll have my personal items out by end of day. HR can mail my final check. Where? Are you going? Amber asked, her voice small. I paused at the door. To a company that understands that experience isn't a liability, it's their competitive advantage. 3 months later, I sat in my new corner office at Ellis Warner, where I'd been hired as executive vice president of their newly formed legacy client division. My salary was 40% higher than my highest earnings at Crestwood. My team was diverse, in every way, including age. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert Williams. Contract's up for renewal next month. Crestwood's latest proposal is underwhelming. Free for lunch Thursday? I smiled as I typed back. Always time for you, Robert. The official ethics policy at Ellis Warner prohibited poaching clients from former employers for 12 months after hiring, but there was nothing that prevented clients from following a trusted advisor on their own initiative, especially when that trusted advisor had legally exited her non-compete clause. My assistant knocked on my door. Your daughter's on line 1, I picked up. Emma, how's the internship going? Amazing, she gushed. Mom, my supervisor says I have a real shot at a permanent position after graduation. That's wonderful, honey. It's because of you, she said, her voice softening. Watching you stand up for yourself start over, it taught me so much. I blinked back unexpected tears. Everything I did was for you and Zach. I know, but you also did it for yourself. That's the part I needed to see. After we hung up, I walked to my window overlooking the city, the same city where I'd spent 25 years building someone else's dream. Now, finally, I was building my own. My phone buzzed again. A news alert. Crestwood Technologies had announced a restructuring after losing 3 major accounts. Their stock had dropped 17% on the news. The article mentioned that Martin had stepped down as CEO. I didn't feel the vicious satisfaction I'd expected, just a quiet certainty that justice sometimes arrives on its own schedule. The following week, Amber Chen sent me a LinkedIn request with a message. "I learned more from watching you leave than I did in all our time working together. If you ever have an opening on your team, I'd love to talk." I considered it for a long moment before accepting her connection, not her implied request. She still had lessons to learn, but the acknowledgement of what had happened. Because the truth is, revenge wasn't about destroying Crestwood or hurting Amber or Martin. It wasn't even about the money, though the financial security was sweet vindication. Real revenge was finding my worth outside the company that discarded me. It was discovering that the relationships I'd built were mine, not theirs. It was walking away on my terms, head high, future secure. At 48, I wasn't too old. I was just getting started. And that, my friends, is the most satisfying revenge of all.